Welcome to Whiskey Gaming, and this is my late review of Halo Wars. Yeah, this came out a long time ago, but I felt like replaying it. I play on the Xbox Series X. It's also available on the Series S, Xbox One, Xbox 360, and PC. So let's get into the story. In Halo Wars, you play as the crew of the Spirit of Fire. They are part of the UNSC, and they are sent to the planet Harvest. Harvest is essentially a shithole because it was a long-time battlefield between the Covenant and the UNSC. However, Forerunner artifacts have been discovered there, and now, well, the UNSC is interested again, and guess what? So are the Covenant. And there are some twists and turns along the way getting to the end of the story, and I gotta say, I liked the story. I thought it was good, and I think they do a good job of incorporating it into the gameplay, into the experience, and it does a good job pulling you through the game. A good story should be married well with the gameplay mechanics. But let's move on to the audio, and the music is excellent. It is very Halo. I don't know how else to put it. That is what the music is, and it feels very much like it belongs in a Halo game. As for the voiceover work, it is top-notch. It is definitely very good. Everybody does a great job. You have a strong cast who bring their characters to life incredibly well. And then you've got the sound effects, which are very good. They work very well. They help immerse you in the battles, as well as do a great job with just ambient sound effects, making you feel like you are on these planets depending on where you are. They help build the atmosphere that you're looking for. So let's move on to the gameplay mechanics and whatnot, and it's a real-time strategy game that is built for consoles. And that is actually very important because real-time strategy generally works better with keyboard and mouse. And I will say that does kind of come into play here a bit. On keyboard and mouse, there are RTS games where you can designate different teams essentially to different keys that you're using. Whereas in this, you're kind of stuck either grabbing everybody, just everybody on the screen, maybe all of a certain type of unit on the screen. Point being, you are quite limited, but the game is designed in a way where that doesn't negatively impact you as much as you might expect. But at the same time, it doesn't give you the same freedom as, you know, a traditional RTS game. But in a lot of ways, it does work like a traditional RTS game. You get to an area, you build your base, you gather supplies, which that gets a little complicated because you have limited spaces around your base to build things, a maximum of 7 as you upgrade your base. And the problem is you need power plants, you need supply depots, but you also need facilities that are going to build soldiers, vehicles, air vehicles, whatever. So you can get a little limited. There's a building designated for upgrades. The one vehicle you're always kind of good on is Warthogs because they just come out of the main base as well as they get upgraded there. But that does leave you with some limits because like the power stations, sometimes you need 4 powers, which the maximum you can get is 2 per station. So now you need 2 stations out of your 7, as well as you need supplies, so you're probably going to need at least 2 of those. So I would say that is my biggest complaint, although on a lot of levels you can get to an area where you can build a second base, get more supply depots, and all of the other stuff you need going. I do think it holds the game back just a little bit. You also can't build huge, overwhelming armies. I mean, you can to an extent, but it's not as impressive as some games. All of that being said, I never felt like I was fully screwed. I always felt that I was perfectly capable of building everything that I would need. So I always was able to beat the mission without any like truly rigorous thought process and really beating myself up trying to sort it out. Which I will say, yeah, it's not the hardest game I've played, and I was playing on normal difficulty. What I will say about the missions, though, is I think they do a cool job giving you a good variety, and like I said, blending them into the story. While the gameplay isn't necessarily as strong as a lot of classic RTS games, I think it works well. Let's get into the controls, and I complained about this a little bit earlier about how I wish there was more depth to the controls because that allows you a lot more control over the game as a whole. But I will say I found them responsive. They did do what I needed them to do, and it actually works far better than you'd think. They clearly put the time and effort into making this work on a controller. And so that's something in and of itself that should absolutely be appreciated. Then we'll get into the graphics, and it's not the prettiest thing. This thing is 16 years old. That being said, it's an RTS game, so you're not getting this up close and personal views of the characters. You can zoom in and they look good enough. I don't think they look phenomenal, and I don't think any of the backdrops look phenomenal. The amount of detail that they are and were able to create at that time was limited. There were definitely graphical limitations at the time, but I think overall in the design and the visuals, they really do nail the Halo vibe, and I think it's really cool because you're so used to Halo being an FPS, you're the Spartan, you're the Master Chief, whereas this you are not, and you get to experience the battlefield a bit more. So I think that's actually a cool idea going for that. And while it's not the prettiest game you're ever going to see, I do think they did a good job with the different vehicles. They feel like the vehicles that they're meant to be, that we have seen in the other Halo games. That's true of the soldiers, ODST, the regular Marines. You do get some Spartans. And then there's the cinematics, which are still actually really good looking. While the gameplay may not be the best, and admittedly the cinematics aren't necessarily up to today's standards, they do still look very good. That is one of the advantages of cinematics versus cutscenes, especially back then. You could always do something better with all that pre-rendered cinematic CGI versus, bringing in the cutscenes back then. I was actually pretty surprised at how good the cinematics looked. Overall though, I think it works well. I don't think RTSs need to necessarily always be a graphical powerhouse. The only real issue I had the entire time was I completed the final mission and then it just kicked me back out to the main menu, didn't give me my final cinematic, so I had to replay the final mission. That was frustrating. As well as if I put my console to sleep, the game wouldn't always wake up with it and I would have to restart the game. Those would be my two big complaints, which neither of them were really that devastating. I lost another 20 minutes beating the final mission because I already knew better this time. So to get into the wrap up, I enjoyed it. I think it's a bit short. I definitely think there was room to grow, and I kind of want a Halo Wars 3 now. So I don't have a problem recommending this. I think you should definitely pick it up. I think it's available on Game Pass if you have Game Pass. If you don't have an Xbox, there's always Steam. If you don't want to get Game Pass, it's not a crazy expensive game, and it was a lot of fun. Okay, in the comments down below, why don't you tell me, would you like a Halo Wars 3? Because like I said, I kind of do. And as always, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button. And if you like what I'm doing in general, share and subscribe. Have a good one.